All right, welcome back to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott. This is Lucas over here, and this is the instant reaction review to Friday Night SmackDown from Dublin. I've got my Guinness ready, and it's time to dive into the show overall. Thoughts as we just come out of it, Lucas. What did you think of the Irish TV show? I mean, it's the first time we've ever had a live event from Dublin, and I thought it was an enjoyable show overall.
Yeah, I think there was some very strong parts of the show. There were some medium parts. There was nothing like overly bad, but I do think we didn't really get a lot of new stuff heading towards Clash in Paris, which worries me because it's like, it probably is going to be a 5-match card, but it's just figuring out what that 5th match is now.
Yeah.
We saw, obviously, I mean, I'd argue, to be fair, the best stuff was the opening bit with Becky. I'd say followed by, well, I'd say that would be second, actually. The top bit for me was a Cena and Logan Paul promo exchange. So that was done really, really well. And that was midway through the broadcast. The beginning as well. And then that interesting segment we just came out of, really. And I'm going to encompass it all together because everything in it was really kind of just like rapid fire, wasn't it? It was very much. We went from thinking we had Asa Black taking on R-Truth.
Yeah, that last half an hour was crazy.
R-Truth not being there.
Yeah.
Saying that, bringing back Damian Priest, that brawl happening, to Drew McIntyre then interrupting the commentators, to then get taken up by Randy Orton, and then we had a 5-minute tag team match main event.
And then into the John Cena and Logan Paul thing at the very end as well. So
with Nick Aldis, saying that he
something about Brock
Lesnar.
Yeah.
Which it'd be interesting if that also something like that also happened next week when Nick tries to tell Cena something and then he gets interrupted or cut off, and then obviously they're gonna then do the proper thing when Lesnar does return in 2 weeks' time. To obviously just say or do the thing he wants, essentially. It's Brock Lesnar. But there were some boos and very sizable boos when he did mention Brock Lesnar's name in the crowd. So, and it'll be interesting how people are with him when he obviously is back in a couple.
Yeah, I mean, without the shock, because I think a lot of the reaction, the positive reaction, would come from shock of we're at an event and wow, a big superstar's come back. Once the dust settles, I think it's going to be a little bit different once people are in person. Look, this is something we can go into much deeper, of course, and we've done it a few times on this channel already, surrounding the kind of complications around Brock Lesnar at the time, and it felt like he wasn't going to come back anytime soon, and he has. But that's leading towards WrestlePalooza. As you say, a lot of tonight was about kind of fine-tuning, almost getting towards Clash in Paris, I should say, not the castle this time. But sowing the seeds a little bit for WrestlePalooza. Now, of course, it was a SmackDown show, but as we alluded to already, it started out with Becky Lynch, and it was a great kind of opening segment. I think both of us agreed it was a fantastic promo from Becky, and she did the typical thing of, I'm going to big up, look at us. We made it, right? No, actually, I made it. You guys suck. That kind of thing. And I thought it was a really good opening segment. Again, leads to this main event, which is a very, very weird short match in itself. But just generally speaking, mate, what did you think of the opening of SmackDown? Do you think it was a good way to start the show?
Yeah. I think although it probably went a bit longer than it needed to, it did make sense on this occasion because you had the whole shock factor of Becky and then the turn factor. But obviously, I guess maybe I'm tainted by the fact that obviously, Christopher, bless him, he did basically spoil this for us. Which, then when we saw it kind of play out, we're like, oh, okay. It's not as surprising. I mean, it's also nice as well to get the women's division obviously as part of the main event.
Yeah.
But it still hasn't, when you look at the full story of what they told, I don't know what they're going for. We're still no closer to deciding who's facing Tiffany next because, does Jade face her next? I'm guessing because she pinned Nia.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still very much face-face, even though there was some weird looks between Tiffany and Jade right at the very end.
It felt more long-term. It felt like they're going to go back to that. And they themselves knew that wasn't strong enough to close the show. So therefore, they ended it with Cena. Because just before that match, I was thinking to myself, could you have not ended with what we've just seen? That kind of chaos of Damian Priest coming back and Drew McIntyre and all that kind of. Could they not have ended without Randy Orton showing up as a surprise as well? I still felt like, oh, that's not an ending to the show, but it was still more than what I expected the women to kind of do as far as what story.
The problem with that, it would have been good if it's leading to something involving any of those people at the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I know now, because they've only booked 4 matches, that probably not going to get any of those people on Clash.
Well, it's the thing, it's still not Clash related, but at least it's a big story that they just went, oh, even though we've started putting up the credits, we're going to go backstage now to look at, because that's the story. So the headline, because I said to you, didn't I, about an hour ago now, like, what's the headline coming out of this show? It doesn't feel like it's going to be related to the women's division at all, and the best they can do is Jade and Tiff go at it, which we've already seen, and that was their answer. They wanted to make Becky in the main event because it was in Dublin, but they knew from a TV perspective that wasn't going to be the close to the show. So it was an interesting way to book it, and I don't know if they've got the best of both worlds or they've messed up both, like, because they were both rushed as well. But going back to that beginning segment, I think the best part of what we saw from Becky, because we barely saw anything from her at the end, was that opening segment. Again, typical heel stuff, but it just shows she's on another level, especially within the women's division as far as her kind of storytelling and her mic skills. I thought it was very, very clever and a really enjoyable way to open the show. After that, we did get a nice little backstage segment as well with Jimmy Uso and Sami Zayn kind of enjoying the fruits of Jimmy's labor a little bit. And then the MFTs show up to ruin the party. Solo with a funny comment of basically saying, look, Jimmy, I know the ship is sailed for you, but when that baby comes along, we'll have plenty of opportunities for him to kind of come and join, for them to come and join us, which I thought was quite funny as well. But we get into our first match here. We also get Mello Don't Miz versus the Motor City Machine Guns. Thoughts on this one? As you say, it was a very smooth kind of match and delivery, really, as always, from the Machine Guns, and told an interesting story as far as Mello Don't Miz go. They continue to kind of build from last week's SmackDown, and already we've seen an announcement for a match next week. So where do you think we're going with this one? Do you think next week's the time we see it? And what did you think of tonight's kind of shenanigans between the
I think if we link both tag matches together, because they've had one division that has had actually some storyline movement has been the tag division, because we now know next week we're going to see the 2 winning teams basically of tonight's tag matches. They are going to be in action next week against each other for number one contendership. So it is showing some forward movement in that, because we had obviously Miz and Mello, they beat the Machine Guns, and we had Street Profits beat MFTs. So I think that's one division that we can be proud of. I thought this match was very solid though. It was a good opener. It was good at furthering a lot of storylines with the Miz and Mello thing. And I don't think we're going to get the turn next week. I think I think because the Miz is getting good reactions and because it's still quite new, I'd ride it out to a title match. I'm deadly honest. I'd ride it out to a title match, and if you want to do the turn, then fair enough. But I definitely wouldn't. Yeah, I'm with you in thinking that it's not going to be a long thing. Or it shouldn't be a long thing. But then saying that, the Street Profits have been meant to turn to each other for about 3 years.
Yeah, true.
So I wouldn't be too surprised if it is just, they're going to just lose the tag Tom title match and keep teaming for another 3 years.
Well, yeah, I think the title, especially depending on the story they want to tell, and I think you can kind of do it with the White Six, because again, nobody really knows where people like them, they're intrigued by them, but they're heels at the same time. I think so. Like, you can use them as the fall guys in this story of almost like coming around to the Miz. Let's say you do go for the Carmelo Hayes heel turn, that the Miz nearly got another opportunity in this stage of his career to become a champion, but the young jealous upstart who was supposed to be taken under his wing ruined it for the both of them out of spite. So, and I think the White Six can easily then scuttle away and do their own little storyline away from that as well. So it kind of does make sense, and it is, as you say, one that could go all the way up to the championship match itself, or maybe, who knows, they become champion and it's a long, long way away. The next match we saw, though, Charlotte Flair versus Piper Niven. Pretty impressive match, this one here. Again, not too long, but I really enjoyed what I saw, especially from Piper, which is mad because you think about it, like it's almost a throwaway match, but 5 years ago, if you said these two facing off, I'd be thinking, oh, what is it, a SummerSlam match? Because Piper, I mean, she's still great, don't get me wrong, but she's not positioned in the way I think many of us thought she would be when she came into the company. But a match like this really shows off her talents because she's incredible, I think, character-wise. I think she's done so well since she's been in the WWE to improve on that sort of stuff, and kind of, add that string to her bow, if you will. But this match really, and I think it is because she was in there with someone like Charlotte, to me started to show off reminders of like just how good she is in the ring.
Yeah, I think obviously we did get confirmation that they are getting a tag team title shot next week, which, to be fair, I will take back some of my moan. I think we have seen progression onto next week's episode. I would like to clarify. We haven't really seen a lot of progression into where we're going on the PLE stage, is what I meant. But I thought it was a solid match. There was some nice, kind of bits and pieces they both did. I think, it was definitely a nice style-making vehicle for Piper Niven. I think, obviously, having a win over Charlotte Flair is always a good thing. To have under your
Can't hurt.
Constantly, Chelsea and Secret Service are kind of on the receiving end of a lot of losses in this company, so it was nice to see them actually get a win.
Yeah.
Particularly because I don't think they're going to win. Obviously, don't be aware, but there's the mixed tag match at NXT Heatwave this Sunday. Chelsea Green and Ethan Page, or Ethan Page, as Santino Marella calls him, taking on Tyra May Steele and Tavion Heights, doing like a US. I don't know how much you know of this, but US versus Canada kind of storyline. I don't imagine the villains will win that. So I'd say that it was definitely like a much needed win for Chelsea and Co. Before that happens. But I think, I think as well, like it's just good and refreshing them learning from previous mistakes with the women's tag belts, already having the next thing ready. Not kind of letting it be forgot.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I know. I'll say the secret. No, I don't know. Maybe not. I was gonna say I know they're not gonna win the titles, but
I heavy doubt.
They are a team that, like, I would say deserve a spotlight like that. And it'd be interesting as a kind of shift from them looking after the US champ in Chelsea Green, and then her suddenly not being the one with the gold, and the team that look after her being with the gold. So it'd be an interesting way to take that story. But looking forward to it, and hopefully it's a good match next week on SmackDown. Again, that'll be coming to you from Lyon in France, and we'll be doing our best to cover all of these European shows on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel in depth. Matthew's in the house that says, what do you rate this SmackDown? We'll get to that at the end, Matthew, but thank you for the comments. I do want to hear what Lucas thinks as far as the rating goes, so stay tuned. We'll get to that at the end of the stream. And he says, let's freaking fracking get it. Nice one, mate. Alfred says, when is the John Cena versus Logan Paul match? So we did see that as the closing segment again on Friday Night SmackDown. Logan Paul hits him with a pretty sweet punch to the jaw. That match is taking place at Clash in Paris, which is, at time of recording, just over a week and a half away. I believe it's on the 31st or something. No, nearly 2 weeks. We're on our way there, essentially on our way to Paris. On the way though, there is of course Dublin, and again a fun edition of SmackDown. We did see Julia backstage. My goodness, we made quite a few jokes earlier on, didn't we, Lucas, about Julia not popping up at all, and then what do you know, she shows up backstage, and Michin has challenged her to a championship match. I'm sure that will get there eventually, but of course that was with Kiana James, who's getting involved as well. Michin says, look, if you're offering me 2 matches, that's not a bad thing. I'm happy to take them both, and then I'm taking the title. So we'll see where we get to with that one. We then get the for me, probably the most entertaining segment of the night, and that is of John Cena and Logan Paul. Cena makes his return to Friday Night SmackDown and live in Dublin. Of course, instantly interrupted by Logan Paul. Cena didn't even get to say a word, but then let Logan speak for quite some time, and then basically, as you said earlier on, as expected, would undress him pretty quickly on the mic as well. What are your thoughts of this one?
Yeah, this was brilliant, to be fair. It wasn't really a weak part of the whole segment. I think it did what it needed to do. I can understand why they went for Becky starting the show, the hometown pop, that kind of thing, and it set on the main event. But obviously, this also would have worked as like a nice segment, particularly because it bookends anyway what happened later on with Logan attack him. I think the promo in particular, I think it did a very good job. This is the thing when they're having all this stuff close together, and like I said, we know what's coming next. Like we know it's Brock Lesnar, so we know literally minute Clash finishes, it is Brock o'clock for John Cena. Oh no, God!
Mate, you've just coined the T-shirt there.
The thing is, what's annoying is they're going to say it at some point, aren't they?
Oh gosh, mate.
But
yeah,
like, and so we know that in come end of 9 days time,
and it might be in Paris as well. You know, that could be a nice little surprise at the end, as far as like a big story coming out of it, at least similar to.
Well, that might be what Nick trying to tell him, and then he can't. Obviously,
like he's gonna be there. Yeah. What? So you think every week Nick might just go to give him some news, and Logan Paul just attack like every kind of show until then, essentially.
Well, we've only got one show left, haven't we? Next week to go. I'm
sure. Oh yeah, you're right. It's only Leon, and then we're straight into it. Yeah, good point actually. So yeah, I mean, I do wonder if, again, this is something that happens at the end of the show, but kind of jumping forward, I do wonder if that closing segment and that comment of, oh, I just spoke to Brock Lesnar and he says, is ever going to be solved, or if it's going to, I it's not a big deal if it's not, but I really am not a fan of when they do this sort of thing and they forget. It was just for that night. It really frustrates me when they do stuff like that.
I'd imagine because it's Brock Lesnar, who, again, we've done enough about talking about the controversy around him, but because it's Brock Lesnar, I can only imagine that his name's being said for a reason. And it's one of those where either it's going to be revealed next week what he was going to say, and so it's going to be, okay, he wants a face at WrestlePalooza, fair enough, or it's going to be revealed by him. That makes sense. So, like, if he was to attack McClack in Paris, I then think on the SmackDown after Clash, it will be, oh, Nick always tried to warn you.
I was coming, yeah.
But I think it will be solved because of it being Brock Lesnar. I don't think. Yeah, I definitely think Brock's not the guy you want to kind of annoy by kind of saying his name and not having anything for it. Like, I think there's a lot of documentation of how Brock's treated people in that company when they've tried to, piss him off, basically. Look at Braun Strowman and Matt Riddle and people like that, who he's had to give a dressing down to. But I think, I think it will get solved. I think, but all in, it's some very good storytelling for this feud. I would argue my only gripe, I think, is I get the whole right hand thing, but I do think we need to see like a more serious beatdown from Logan in order to sell him that he could win this match.
Yeah, I was going to jump into it and say, I heard you think's winning, but that is really not for tonight's stream. Of course, we will be diving into Clash in Paris as we get closer to it with that show in Lyon, where we'll be covering SmackDown in depth, as we will be doing Raw in Birmingham as well. And then on the build-up show, we'll really dive into our predictions for Clash in Paris as well. But, without jumping into who you think's going to win, I kind of get where you're coming from of we need to be able to sell that Logan can win. So he's hitting with a cheap shot tonight. So does that mean next week he really just beats him down or something?
I think we've got to see a bit. This goes for a lot of feuds. Actually, a lot of the problems I have a lot of feuds in WWE at the moment is we don't see enough physicality, and it then I know they want to save for the pay per view and they don't want to risk injuries on tour, and then they can't do the match on the PLE. I get a lot of this, but I'm also a case of where with this, I thought this segment they did the promo segment, in my opinion, should have been used as the catalyst, the vehicle to get a more serious Logan Paul into this match, because he's still going into this match a bit with a whole delusion like, I'm Logan Paul, I'm the best, like still like I'm the best thing in this company, blah blah. But Cena dressed him down in such a way that I think it now means we need to see a more serious Logan Paul, because literally this could be like in you're thinking that, like in kayfabe, if you're Logan Paul at this junction, if you beat John Cena at Clash in Paris, theoretically, you should become the number one contender to face Cody Rhodes because you was the last champion, and he was probably the biggest name in the company. You're beating him, so surely you should be okay, right, WrestlePalooza, it's me and Cody.
Yeah, true.
If you're looking at it from a kayfabe point of view, if this, so I think it only makes sense for Logan to get more serious and take this match more seriously. Because it's not just the random tag match he had at SummerSlam, for example. This is like a bona fide style making opportunity here for him to do.
Yeah,
I think we should see a bit more seriousness. So my only gripe with that is but maybe we will see this next week win the match itself. So it's not a total problem now, and I get that I reckon it was probably done because they knew they didn't have enough with that main event, to have it as that last segment. But the promo segment was very, very good.
I do think that Logan, I get what you mean. He's, being a bit more serious next week, but I think we got a hint of that tonight. He did play into it. And again, similar to what he did with Jelly Roll and Randy Orton with Drew, this kind of somewhat being like, hey, like I'm always here and they're outsiders. It was kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We all know I really am that. I thought you got RKO'd out of nowhere then, Lucas. I was like, what is going on? I turned away a little bit. But he kind of touched on that a little bit here as well in a different way with John Cena, by basically being like, look, I give you these 5-star matches. This guy does 5 moves and he goes away, he kind of, he's lent into that a little bit more, but I know what you mean. I think getting a bit more serious with it next week, not just being, I'm so great, blah, 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 in a kind of typical heel way, but really diving into that kind of, telling the story about how there is a difference between him and Cena and how Cena is on the way out and he is on the way up as well. So be interesting to see where we go with that one. But yeah, a good segment overall. I'm in agreement with you. I think it was good delivery from both of these guys, and it was probably the biggest story coming out of the show. Again, they touched on it at the end of the night as well to really kind of drive that home. Next up, though, we did have the Street Profits in tag team action against the MFTs, and we kind of loosely touched on this a little bit earlier on as well. Not the most amazing match, but still pretty entertaining for what we saw. It was JC Mateo, sorry, and Tongaloa. I'm getting them all mixed up now. Where is Tamatonga, by the way? It'd be nice to see him back soon. Yeah, it'd be nice to see him back. Good match. Won by the Street Profits with a beautiful frog splash, as you would expect. A match that saw shenanigans, as we always expect with a Bloodline or Bloodline adjacent type storyline, where we saw Sami Zayn make his way out there, and that, of course, was to chase off Talatonga, who was angrily chasing after Jimmy Uso, who had hit him in the back with a steel chair. So again, a lot of the same old stuff when it comes to these characters, but still, I can't lie, I can't pretend I weren't entertained. It was a pretty good segment in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just a case of now we've got 2 matches that need to happen within this. You can argue 3 because there's a tag option too, but definitely Jimmy against Talatonga, and then definitely Solo Sikoa against Sami Zayn. And then you could argue, obviously, you could make that into a tag as well. There's multiple versions of that tag that could happen, I guess. Because you could even, a cool thing they could do is obviously have them do a tag with, 2 of the non-Solo Sikoas against 2 of the non-Solo Sikoas, to then obviously earn the title shot.
Yeah.
So you could do that, and then, so yeah, you've got matches like that, but it's like those aren't going to PLE. Surely they're just going to be TV.
Yeah, I think some of them could with the right kind of backing behind it, and I do think
Solo could.
Sami Solo for sure.
Well,
but it depends how they book it. I think a lot of it does feel like TV because that's just the way TV's been. But it does feel like, and this is something I think Andy brought up on the SummerSlam build up about, like, eventually, surely, War Games will be, again, Bloodline versus MFTs or something like that. So, I mean, that's another conversation for another day. But it does feel like they're already setting us up for that because we've got now Sammy and Jimmy working together and they're back involved in this kind of MFT Bloodline storyline. So I do think there are these smaller feuds to be told because there is probably the big one to be told at the end of the year, which is crazy to think because, look, I know we're getting into the latter part of the year, but hey, it's still sunny out, man. I don't want to be talking about Survivor Series just yet, but it does feel like we're starting to get there already. But look, when it comes to tonight's show in Dublin and the kind of offering we got from these 2 teams, I thought it was a well contested match, pretty enjoyable. your same old stuff with shenanigans, but look, I'm not against it. So a pretty good segment overall.
Yeah.
Then after that match, we start to get into the really confusing and rushed stuff. And again, I say rushed because really don't know if this was a timing thing, because as we were talking about it on the watch along, and again, thank you to everyone that's joined us live for this instant reaction review, but of course everyone that joined us for the watch along section as well. There was the advertisement from last week of Aleister Black versus R-Truth, which is a feud that's been bubbling under the surface. And on the watch along, I was saying, look, it's not great for either guy. Then we didn't get it, and all of a sudden it did feel much bigger because the replacement for R-Truth, and if you didn't see SmackDown yet, it was basically Truth saying, sorry guys, but I actually flew to Dublin, Georgia, I think it was. My bad. So I've got a replacement, and it's Damian Priest. It was a nice pop for Damian Priest, nice return, and a feud that suddenly starts to make a little bit more sense as far as elevating Aleister Black by using, as you said rightly when we were on the watch along, someone that they've put a lot of stock in, really, essentially, with Damian Priest, someone that they've made world champion. They've, it's not, let's be honest, the last 6 months haven't worked out the way I think a lot of us expected, or I'm sure Damian expected, as far as being in that main event scene. He's kind of got a little lost in the shuffle. Moving him over to SmackDown gives him that opportunity. And I think this is a great way, as far as the feud, to bring Aleister back up, because he's a bit lost at the moment, by bringing someone who's of higher stock than him at the moment in Damian Priest. And then once that's done, cool, I'll leave you here, Aleister. You go off and have some feuds, and Damian goes back up to the main event title picture scene, which I'm hoping is the case here. But this is a positive start, essentially, to that story, if that is the case.
Yeah. I mean, well, say start, because they did the whole attack segment a few weeks back.
Yeah, they've got... The seed's already there, but the wheels are in motion now, essentially. Yeah.
And this potentially could be a PLE match, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know for Clash, obviously. I think that's too soon. But Resapalooza, potentially. Or even in Perth, because that's very close together as well.
True.
So we have got some time to let this situation go. And yeah, it's always a sucker when obviously they hype something and they don't deliver. But I think something smart they did do is at least have R-Truth do a promo as part of the show.
And it fits his character. I think taking away anything, as you say, is risky. Taking away Truth at a time where people were probably a little bit annoyed about the way Truth's been treated anyway, and they've really enjoyed him, was a risk. But if there's any character that can get away with it, it's Truth.
Yeah. And I think, and also, well, the replacement being bigger is always a good thing. Like, you couldn't have just had, like, a randomer show up. It had to be someone bigger. And I think it was done quite well. Obviously, we have seen a lot of pull-apart brawls this year. A lot, you can probably lost count how many we've seen. But I think this was it was a nice, brief way of doing things. And it led nicely into the next segment. I mean, they need to do more stuff like this, like genuinely, with the amount of people they've got on the roster, the amount of kind of stories they want to tell. Because obviously, straight after this, which obviously they didn't drag out, they just kind of had the little brawl happen, and then that was that. They then had the announcers go to give an announcement about, well, they did a nothing announcement essentially, which happens quite a lot nowadays in newscasting, where they just said essentially there's no medical update on Cody Rhodes. Which I find quite
that thing you want to know about? We don't know.
And I find it quite fascinating because obviously, they're meant to have the best doctors in the world. And I mean, someone's head went through a table. Should be quite easy to figure out what the medical problem could be. Head going through a table.
Mate, I always remember back in the day when Booker T broke the news of Jerry Lawler's anal bleeding, or was it Jerry?
Yeah.
And someone said it, Michael Cole, and then Booker T was like, "What?" I can't remember. Was it Jerry? Anyway, but yeah, how can they know that so quick? But they don't know what's happened to Cody over a week ago. So
it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was 2. Yeah. And this is a man who was diagnosed at Hell in a Cell and had a match.
Yeah.
Like, my muscles ripped off. I'm gonna have a match, but we don't know. But I guess you could argue a head injury is different.
Maybe, but we had that, and then we had Drew McIntyre, who by the way we had seen earlier on Drew McIntyre backstage, and he got a very good reception.
Yeah.
But then we then went into essentially Drew McIntyre interrupting announcers and getting a little bit of promo time, and he was attacked by none other than a returning Randy Orton. Say returning, it's awkward when people just miss a few weeks.
Yeah, and they're back.
Yeah, but they're back. and getting RKO'd by Randy Orton. So, but the only thing is, we're now left with a few questions, like, because obviously we have to imagine Drew and Cody is the end goal for Cody's title at some point. And I'm assuming now, but particularly because they didn't mention it on this episode, that it's not taking place at Clash. So we're assuming the earliest we're getting that match is WrestlePalooza. Or is it another feud that goes to Perth, to Crown Jewel?
Well, so WrestlePalooza is the 20th of September, right? So we're on the 22nd of August as time of recording. So we're basically a month away. So I do think there's enough time to build into that. I think it's interesting that they brought Randy out because it's at this stage it's hard to tell if. I mean, look, he's just feuded with Randy, so it makes sense. And Randy and Cody are aligned as far as kind of their history and stuff like that. So that makes sense as well. But at the same time, it's also possible it was just a moment for tonight, because Randy's on the tour and they needed to do something essentially to kind of make the McIntyre segment end, right? Which, by the way, as you said, he was shown backstage. I'm really glad they used him there because there was a big reaction for him. It was, you've got to get the best out of him essentially. So I'm not sure if it was just that. But that's not usually the way they do things on TV. If things are done on TV, it usually means it is because Randy Orton and Drew are going to do something next week or whatever it may be. But because it's that European tour, and again, going back to the European tour we saw before WrestleMania, we did see a slight change in the format. I mean, this show is a great example of that. We started out with someone from Raw opening up simply because she's from Dublin. It was great, don't get me wrong. And then a very strange ending to the show because they realized they almost puts it half like a house show, as we've said, and half like a TV show. They need that storyline progression, but they need to treat it special because it's a special occasion as far as, it's a show in Dublin. And I feel like this segment kind of could go either way with that. It could lead to Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton going into something, and it's still being at WrestlePalooza because a month is a fairly long time. There's still, at least 4 SmackDowns, maybe 3 or 4 SmackDowns to go before that, depending on how the weeks align. Or it could have just been for tonight, or as you say, it could be going further on to Crown Jewel.
Tonight, I think that would have been the dark match main event, like potentially.
Yeah.
So then they don't have to put it on TV. I think the fact.
I wonder if there's one. Let me look it up.
Is an angle. It should be used to be setting something up. So I think even if it is, they're going to do this match with SmackDown in like a couple of weeks, because something they do. I noticed during these kind of things is they are still trying to please the domestic viewer in America, and potentially this is a match we get in 2 weeks when they're back in America. We get Randy and Drew, because they feel like, oh well, they have the European tour, so they now need to give something back to the Americans. But yeah, I don't imagine I don't think it will go nowhere. I think it definitely leading to a match between them two, and then I guess that might even be when Cody comes back. Potentially,
yeah, true.
But if we're going on the basis, well, that's the thing. We've mentioned earlier that we felt that maybe Brock Lesnar might return at Clash, but then Cody Rhodes can't also return on that same show.
Yeah, true. I think it'd be weird to not have Cody at Clash because, when it was announced, he's a big star, right? He was the champion when he got the first time round, of his title reign. So it'd be weird for him to not be there. But, we've seen stranger things happen, don't get me wrong. But I think what you say there is a good point. I think Randy Orton could be the placeholder, essentially, even if it is for WrestlePalooza, just to kind of buy time for the next week or two to have a focus with Drew McIntyre for Cody to come back on a SmackDown, or even again at Clash, like you say, next week could be that match as well. Just to touch on what we just speculated on there as far as dark match, it looks like the dark match is Jacob Fatu versus Dominic Mysterio in a non-title match, which is really kind of left field. Didn't expect it to be those two, but hey, it is what it is. Also seeing something about Lyra and Io versus Roxanne and Raquel, but I'm not sure if that's actually the case. The only one I've really seen quite a lot of comments about was Dirty Dom versus Jacob Fatu. So yeah, that looks to be the dark match on SmackDown tonight. But yeah, I think again, Randy Orton's a great character to be able to slot into anywhere in any bloody storyline within the bloody card itself. But to slot into here makes sense in so many ways because you've got, again, the allegiance of Cody Rhodes and history there, and the recent feud, of course, with Jelly Roll and Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul as well. So it does make sense. But look, we'll cover it in depth next week when SmackDown comes to live from Lyon, France. That does start to bring us towards the end of the show, though. We did end up with that tag team match at the end, as we've touched on already. Very, very short indeed. Any other final notes on the tag team match? I mean, it was a blink and you miss it type thing, so I guess not.
Wasn't much report, guys. I think all we now need to know is where this is leading, because it didn't answer that question really.
Yeah.
One would assume it's Jade against Tiffany, but is there a different angle?
I think there will be. I think that's a long term story now. Otherwise, they would have. They would have done something tonight, and I feel like they knew there wasn't a story. I feel like they didn't want to rush that story, so they needed a different storyline to end the show on, which is why we cut to that Brock Lesnar comment as well. And just to kind of recap for those just tuning in, it ended, of course, the match ended. We got, strangely enough, the executive producer, Paul Levesque, and all that kind of stuff. Throws over to John Cena and Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis says, look, Brock Lesnar, blah, blah, blah. It's got a message or something like that. I just spoke to him, essentially. And then all of a sudden, a lovely shot to the jaw from Logan Paul leaves Cena laying on the floor. And it was kind of a chaotic way to end SmackDown, which, is hopefully going to lead to something next week that's a little bit more, I think, physical and aggressive from Logan Paul, as you said, Lucas. I think it's a good idea to kind of step in that direction so that Logan doesn't look like a chump going into the match where he's kind of not likely to win. There needs to feel like there's real jeopardy and there's an actual risk to John Cena's kind of legacy almost. It's a bit late in the day to start telling that story too much, but you got to tell some story here because it's not for a title and it's not quite that kind of my legacy's on the line and this Punk kid's trying to take it from me. There's not enough time to tell that story properly, but they need to at least do something to kind of make it feel like Logan Paul winning is viable and would mean something as well. So again, whether or not we predict that, we'll get into at a later date. But general vibes, man, what do you think of the SmackDown that we've seen from Dublin overall? And as we get back to this comment from earlier from Matthew, what would you rate this out of 10?
It's a 6.5, 7. Like it wasn't the best episode of SmackDown. There was some fun bits there. There was some weaker bits. The weakest thing really was the main event match, I think, in terms of what we saw in ring, definitely.
Yeah.
And just solely for me, like I said, because that hasn't really dictated that if we are getting Jade and Tiffany, is it going to be different from last time? At the moment, it seems it's going to be exactly the same. Which, if they want to do it, I don't understand why. And it also has shown the weakness in the SmackDown Women's division because you had to draft someone from Raw over to have a reputable kind of main event. But I think the good things were in the men's tag division. I think they built up the Street Profits and the Murder Don't Miz match. I think for next week that'll be good. I do find it weird though, like where to think Nikki Cross legitimately flew over on a plane to stand in the staircase for like 3 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, technically they're in Europe and they're doing the tour, and I'm sure she's been featured elsewhere.
I'm
but
hoping so.
At the very least, she's flown to Dublin to stand on the staircase. So
for 3 seconds.
Yeah, hey mate, if you can get that gig, then more power to you. But it was. I like the background stuff they're doing, but as you say, she was featured in the background on the stairs briefly in the backstage segment as well. But overall, I think I'd agree with you. I think I'd go more on the side of 6 out of 10, which for me is just a standard good show rating. Like 6 is like it was good, nothing special. Again, the weakness was the main event, but that's something we predicted from the get-go, weren't it?
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of the watch-along, we were saying, I don't know if this is going to kind of, deliver as far as progression of storyline goes. Not that any of the girls in there are entertaining or anything like that. good. I think the opening segment was better than the match itself, which is saying something. Which is, but maybe they were rushed. It was a strange last 45 minutes when they really did chop and change and speed things up. The pacing for the show was quite different, but again, we saw similar in the European TV shows a few months ago as well. So that's the first one in the books, guys. As we mentioned, Birmingham has Monday Night Raw. Lyon has SmackDown. Then we got Clash in Paris. And then Paris also gets Monday Night Raw on the Monday after that as well. So looking forward to those shows. Thank you to everyone that's joined us tonight, whether it's been on this instant reaction review or throughout the watch-along experience earlier tonight as well. We really do appreciate it. Again, we don't often get to do this on this channel because we don't get to watch these shows at a reasonable time. So we thought we'd take the opportunity while the shows are in Europe, just like we did earlier this year, to get the best out of the opportunity. So thank you again to everyone that's tuned in. Once again, we will be live on Monday night, talking all things Monday Night Raw from Birmingham, and as I say, enjoying the rest of the European streams as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. Any final notes, Lucas, before we do get out of here?
No, I mean, like I said, I've got a busy weekend myself anyway. I'm going to AW on Sunday.
Are you going? I'm not sure if I'm going to go. So, okay. Is it? Well, I always find a way. Yeah. The last two I decided on the day, as in all ins. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go.
Retail tickets left, but yeah.
Yeah. So, are you going then, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going, yeah.
Okay. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, like I've got my own show the same day, so I'll be...
You do, of course, yeah. Yeah, anyone in London, go into the O2. Make sure you head over to the Isle of Dogs to DKW's show at the Space.
Which is over an hour before AW starts, and it's only about 10-15 minutes away. But yeah, no, I think I'm not the biggest AW fan, but I think they do the big shows quite well.
Yeah, and live as well. They are really fun.
The cards big time.
Yeah.
To the point where even though we are going to be running a bit late for it, and I will be leaving early because I've got another show the next day. I think there'd definitely be enough bang for your buck.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, I think in terms of SmackDown and stuff, I think we've covered everything. And obviously, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I won't be able to join you, unfortunately, on Monday for Raw in Birmingham, but I will be here live and in person in colour for SmackDown in Lyon next week, which hopefully maybe we might get to a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, hopefully.
That would be nice, mate. That would be nice. Yeah,
the Lyon crowd, remember the Lyon crowd, they might make...
They were good. Yeah, AJ Styles has got to have some sort of big thing while they're in France, right, after last year. You know, they really...
AJ's on Raw, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, but then again... Becky showed up, didn't it? Yeah. AJ's basically French now, is what I'm saying. You know, AJ's going to open up Leon's edition of SmackDown. But yeah, as you say, big week in wrestling. AEW this weekend. So much going on. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. We keep saying it. There's so much out there for us as well. So stay tuned to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We'll try and cover it in depth as much as we can. And look, maybe I'll see you over at the O2, Lucas. But if not, enjoy yourself there, mate. And enjoy the DKW show as well. Hopefully we'll catch up with you with a little bit of AEW talk at some point and see how the show went overall. But I've been Scott. He's been Lucas. We'll be back on Monday for Monday Night Raw. And thanks for tuning in. Cheers.